Now, I want to share with you two stories, two personal stories from my life that God really brought back to remembrance when I was preparing this, and it really spoke volumes to me, so I hope it encourages you as well. Some of you may not know, actually, but I was born on a farm in Canada, and spent many happy summers there. Even after I moved here, I'd go there and spend summers and help with different chores, and I witnessed a lot of this planting and cultivating the soil and what that all looked like. And when I was there, I was driving with my uncle one day through a field. We were on the tractor and we're driving through a field, and I remember he just slammed on the brakes and almost gave me whiplash kind of thing, as much as you could on a tractor, right? So anyway, so we're going, and he slams on the brakes, and he sees a rock right in the middle of a just plowed field. So he sees a rock right in the middle of it, and he says, "John, go grab that rock for me and bring it back to the tractor." So I went and grabbed it. And it wasn't like a huge boulder or anything, but it was a good-sized rock. So I went and picked it up, brought it back to the tractor, and I remember thinking to myself, and I actually asked my uncle this, I said, "Uncle Ken, how do we have this huge rock in the middle of a field that we just plowed that has been in our family for like almost 100 years? We take care of this field. How did this rock get in the middle of the field? This doesn't make any sense to me." And my uncle began to explain to me how during the frost and different climate change and temperature changes and all that, that the earth is constantly adjusting. That there's rocks underneath the surface that are way underground, that during the winter seasons and, as I say, the weather patterns changing and everything, it gets heaved up above the surface. So when this happens, you could have a field perfectly clear on a specific year, have it planted, get a great harvest from it. Then the next year have all kinds of rocks all over the place because they've heaved up from underneath the soil. Now, this speaks volumes to what we're talking about here, and should be such an encouragement because all of us have these areas, this rocky soil in our lives. These areas that all of a sudden weren't there, but then came up almost out of nowhere. That all of a sudden something sets it off, and you don't know why this happened, or why you feel a certain way, or why you're not experiencing fruit or growth in this one area of your life. And it's because that rock has come up out of the soil, and it's in a spot on the ground that now you can't have anything grow there. There's no growth because there's something in the way, something holding it back. And it's the same with that rock in the field. If we left it there, it would have destroyed a plow. If the plow came and hit it, it would have made it so nothing could grow where that rock was occupying the space. And it's the same in our lives when we ignore the rocks in our lives, the things that we value higher than God. Those things, they take up space, and it prevents us from experiencing the full harvest that God has for us. The next story that I want to share with you again was from my experience on the farm. And this is in the area of thorns. And this one day I was with my grandpa actually, and we went and looked at a field, and this was early fall time. And the harvest was like ready to be gotten almost. The wheat was like really high. I believe it was wheat. And it was just awesome. It could have been oats as well. But whatever it was just like, as far as you could see, just this giant oat field. It was so cool. And I remember going there, and it all looked good. And my grandpa then pointed out that around not even the edge of the field, there was like the field and then a path. And on the other side of the path, there was all these weeds growing up that were like taller than I was. Which, again, wasn't saying much at the time. But they were like taller than I was. And he told me it was called wild carrot. And the reason it's called that is the root looks just like a carrot when you pull it up from the ground. But he instructed me to pull it up, and we must have spent an hour at least going around like the other side of this field and pulling up all this wild carrot. And I asked him, I said, "Grandpa, why are we bothering with this when they're so far away from the field?" And he explained to me, he said, "John, if we don't take care of this now and get rid of it now, in a matter of a week or two, it could take over the entire field. Because it spreads like wildfire. Once the air takes the seeds that grow on the tops of this weed called wild carrot, it can actually intermingle with the crop that's there, and it grows super quick. And it ends up taking over, and you get this non-nutritious weed mixed in with your oats or whatever your crop is, and it takes over the entire field." And again, this is so symbolic of what Jesus is talking about here with the thorns, that when we neglect it, even though it doesn't look like it's affecting any area of our lives, it looks like we're okay, everything's fine, in a matter of moments, that neglected thorn, that neglected weed can take over the entire harvest of what you've worked so hard for over the years. And don't be fooled that if you think you're doing something and it's not hurting somebody else, but it's still sin, but it's only affecting you and not affecting anything else, don't think for a second that it's not going to flood over into the other areas of your life and prevent the growth that God desires for you. Because it's all connected. That's how weeds work. That's how the thorns work in this story. They need to be uprooted. They need to be taken out so that ground can be cultivated, so that ground can have the good seed grow in it.